Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? Well, I've got that '04 Chevy 2500 6 liter, the one I did the motor mounts on and the knock sensors. Anyway, so I got to do upper control arms on this, and I figured let me show you, doing one side at least, what's involved in actually doing this job. It's not terrible. It's really not terrible, but there's some things you should know. So let me just show you what I'm going to do. So here we are on the driver's side. This is the side where I got to replace that brake booster that's leaking, that Hydro Boost unit right there. Here's your adjustment cams for camber caster, front and rear of the control arm. Now, you see I put paint marks on there because we do not do alignments, and I like to get these things as close as possible to where they were before. Now, this thing was never aligned before, ever, and it's got 300,000 miles on it. So you might be asking yourself, well, how do I know it's never been aligned before? Well, somebody's probably set the toe, but that's about it. Nobody's actually ever done anything else as far as an alignment goes, as far as I could tell. Why do I say that? Because of this. See that white piece right there? This right here that I'm going to break in the process of trying to get out. Doesn't matter if you break it, but there's one there, and there's a gray one on this side. Okay. Well, what are these things? These are from the factory. There we go. This one's starting to come out. And what they are is they lock the alignment to that dowel pin that's right there during assembly on the assembly line. I've never seen these things available for sale anywhere. I'm sure they probably are. But the different colors indicates different degrees or different points of the rotation of the cam. Because see, there's a cam right there in this weird washer. So putting these in place while assembling on the assembly line locks everything in place so they don't have to be overly concerned about the alignment and everything moving. So I guess I'm not quite sure how it works, but I'm assuming when it's being assembled, they probably have some way of figuring out through computers or whatever, you know, hey, this is where our alignment needs to be. So we're going to stick these doodads in there to lock the arms in place. So if you don't see them, usually it means work has been done. If you do see them, usually means nothing's been done. You don't need them to go back together. You don't need them. It's not like people say, oh, they were there before, why aren't they there now? You don't need them. It's just there for assembly. That's all it's for. It's like on rotors. On rotors, remember sometimes you would see the little star clip holding it in place? That's just for assembly line purposes. Nothing else. You don't need them. They're not important. It's just so when they slide your rotor on during assembly, the rotor doesn't fall off going down the assembly line. That's all. So there again, with those, what I need to do is I need to now loosen them up and get the nuts off the backside. And then we're going to take the nut off the ball joint. So, oh, why am I replacing these? Well, if you look, that bushing is toasted. The other side's even worse. Come over here. That bushing's almost non-existent, completely destroyed. And also, this control arm is rotting out. See that? The frame itself is fine on this truck, but the control arm's rotting out. All right, so let me get you set up in a tripod here. Oops, and this tripod just broke. Okay, well I guess it's officially garbage now. It's a shame, I really like these. Okay, this is the one that I've had for years from the very beginning of the channel. Just gonna stick that to the side. Let me go get another tripod. I have another one. And here you see, here's another one that I have. It's the same one as the old one because I like this thing so much. I've purchased a couple of different ones over the years, and most of them suck. This one actually works extremely well. So that's why I keep using it. So these are 21s. So you want to break them free with a regular box wrench. And how nice. It's unscrewing by hand. Now, I did buy new hardware just in case. I have it handy just in case, because sometimes stuff doesn't want to come apart like you think it should. This is not a pry bar. This is a screwdriver. It's also not a chisel or a hammer, even though you may be tempted to use it as one. Some of you understand my sarcasm. Some of you don't. That's okay. All right, so I got to work this off of there. It'll come off. It's just a matter of working it off, because it's got to go over flats and there's dirt and everything else. But here you see, this is what it looks like. And it has a flat there because it grabs the bolt and it rotates with the other side. But now, of course, you're going to have tolerance differences between this and the bolt and that and the other thing. So sometimes you can't actually get these two to line up together, and then you kind of have to manipulate one versus the other. Now, keep them in order somewhere so you don't mix up what side you're taking off from where, because you've marked it with a paint pen. So if you mix them up, because they are interchangeable, if you mix them up, you're just going to create aggravation for yourself. Now, you could probably get in there with a socket, go behind the shock or whatever. I could if I wanted to. I don't really feel like doing that. So we're going to get this done, and then I'll make another video where I change that Hydro Boost brake booster. And then this truck should be completely done. Like I said, I'm putting the bolts, or the nuts rather, and these adjusting cams, washers, whatever you want to call them, I'm putting these in order so I don't accidentally mix them up. There we go. As you can see, this one's a bit dirtier, but not a big deal. It's the same exact thing as the other side. See, everything there moves. I'm going to probably have to let this thing down on the ground and put a little tension on this wheel. I don't like doing that on the lift. But right now is a great time to break free the ball joint. So let me get the brake line out of the way, and there's a 10 millimeter there. I'm sorry, ABS line. And there's a 10 millimeter over here for the actual brake line. And I actually have a garbage can underneath here because there's so much debris on this side because of the oil leak that's been there for so long. Let me get that free, and then we're gonna get the ball joint free. All right, so actually let me move you a little bit to there. All right, so no big deal there. That comes off of there. Put the nut down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab the wheels and cut them one way or the other. 6 to 1/2 a dozen the other. Usually I should have gone the other way, to be honest with you, but the reason being is because I have to loosen this bolt, this nut rather, this way. So I might just automatically turn the rotor to begin with. So that should be an 18. Oh, it started turning right away. Look at that. How lovely. I failed to do what I normally do, and that is take a wire brush to it. Let me get a wire brush on there. And what's the reason for this? Clean the threads up a little bit, because otherwise you're just dragging the nut over top of rust. Little peanut butter blaster. Little dab goes a long way. Now, since I already broke it free, we're going to get a gear type wrench on there. And let me tell you, I bought these Mountain gear wrenches, and I've been, or whatever you want to call them, but they're made by a company called Mountain. They're not the cheapest ones out there, but they're certainly not the most expensive. And I have been extremely happy with the quality of these. And the reason I bought them is because somebody else I know has had these, and they've had them for a number of years, and they worked fantastic for him. And he's never broken one. But there again, he doesn't break bolts free like I've seen people do. Bolts or nuts or any kind of hardware, you don't want to do that. Because breaking it free, obviously that's the highest load point. And that's when you can strip the gears out or whatever. And I like gear wrench. I love gear wrench. I just honestly did not want to spend gear wrench money on these. Because it's a situation of I don't use these every day. But I do use them enough. Whereas my gear wrenches, for my standard gear wrenches, I use them a lot. Okay. So with that being said, what I might do here, it's been so long since I've done one of these, and I don't care about the boot on here. If I cared about the boot, it'd be a different story. I don't care about the boot because I'm replacing the whole thing. I'm just going to take this bracket off here that retains the brake hose and the ABS wire. And it's a 10 millimeter that goes down inside here. Now, if this was an up north vehicle, very good possibility that would not have worked out. Very good possibility of it breaking. All right, so I just want to get that kind of where I can have it out of the way. That's really all I want to do. Okay, disconnect the actual wire harness. Let me move that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pickle fork this thing to separate that. Basically a ball joint splitter. Get in there with the pickle fork and just blap it out. Let me do that. All right, when I say pickle fork, this is what I'm talking about, attached to an air hammer. There, it popped, obviously. Now if you notice too, I kept the nut on there purposely because I didn't want it to pop completely, and the nut keeps it from completely separating. So I'm going to let this thing down. I'm going to get a jack stand. I want to put some pressure on this thing. So let me do that, and then I'll show you. Okay, so I got a floor jack underneath there. This floor jack's actually missing its head, so it has a hole in it where the head would normally go in, and the hole fits perfectly into the lower ball joint. I'll show you when I put it up in the air. Okay, so with that being said, the nut should come dead off, which it did. And now the bolts, where I put my cart. Like I said, I got new hardware too, just in case this hardware got seized up in the control arm, which is common, but on this one it's coming out, so Yay, I don't have to use the replacement hardware. On the back, you have to pull the control arm forward a little bit because otherwise the bolt hits the frame. And then just remember the orientation of things, just in case. All right, so that's off. And as you can see, that bushing is hammered. Toast. The ball joint is not very good either. And I already knew that. I knew the ball joint had play to it. So now, I'm going to set this off to the side gently. And let me find my wire brush. Be careful so you don't brush off your paint marks. You can even use a chisel and put a chisel mark in here to mark everything. So this way you know where it should go back. Now, if you happen to be so unlucky and you wash away the paint marks, then you're out of luck. Now, this thing has to go for alignment regardless, so I'm not extremely concerned about it because I already know I gotta go for an alignment. I'm just cleaning off my wire brush because all that grease is stuck in it. And all it does is create a mess. All right, let me get a blow gun. Let me clean that up a little bit. I have a blow gun here somewhere, at least I thought I did. I thought I had a blow gun there. Oh, there it is. Let me go get the new control arms. All right, so the new control arm is a Moog, as you see there, 730-21-266. Is that the same part number that's on the box? No, it's an RK number. Oh, the top number. Okay. Yeah, the RK number, the RK 620054. Now, we're going to put this in place. Grease fittings. It comes with a grease fitting in the kit. Don't put the grease fitting on till the end. Reason being is I've seen it happen before where people accidentally put it in, they're doing something and they snap it off because they're basically working with everything. So just be mindful of that. Don't do it yet. And sometimes getting new control arms to sit in place can be a little bit of a bear. Sometimes. So just keep it in mind. What I did do too is at the bottom here, I left the nut in place so I don't accidentally nick the threads. And off camera, what I did was I wire wheeled the threaded part of these bolts just to help aid in installation. Just to help aid in installation. Of course it wants to fight me. Do I got a small hammer here? Let me go grab a small hammer. Sometimes you gotta persuade stuff to go together. And that's what's happening here. Persuade it a little bit. Not a big deal. And then as you're coming together, you want to make sure that you catch that groove into that pin there, that locating pin. You can see everything I'm doing, right? Yeah. So now, since everything's coated with grease, I'm going to clean this cam off. What I want to do is just get the heavy grease off of it. I mean, obviously, depending on your vehicle and how clean you want it to be, you can spend however much time you want on it. And sometimes getting this thing to fit back together can be a little bit of a chore, but as you see, I got it. Not a big deal. And now let's say for some reason, whatever you're doing, I don't know, let's say you got a plow on your truck and you need to do this. And let's say something with the plow frame interferes with the bolt. And you finally get it out, but you got to fight it going back together. If you got to go the other way with the bolt, you're not going to hurt nothing. It's fine. It doesn't really matter the direction, as long as the bolt's in there. But obviously, if you go the opposite direction, now your markings don't add up. I mean, your markings won't line up, is what I should say. All right. Hang on a second, because I have got to get my headlight on, because I can't see what I'm doing there. Even though you might be able to, I can't. Put the other cam in place. Okay, so now I'm going to start to tighten down on these nuts, just so I can bring everything in snug. I hope you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so it starts tightening up, so now I'm going to loosen it a little bit. This way I can rotate it. Same thing with this one. Okay, it starts tightening, loosen it a little bit. So now what I want to do is, hopefully you can see this. Let me verify you can see this. I'm going to have to zoom in, I think. Hang on. Actually, let me go up. Okay. So now you see the paint mark there? And there's obviously a paint mark to the inside too. And see how they don't want to fully line up necessarily? And it's because there's slop in the given pieces. So unfortunately, that's about as close as we're going to get. But like I said, this has to go for an alignment anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Now, the next thing too is, now this truck has a lift, so the arms sit at a slight angle, and it's probably another reason that it helped burn up those bushings. But we're going to get this thing sitting up higher than what I would normally do. Something like that position, because like I said, this thing has a lift. And we're going to try to get the bolts as close as possible, or the marks as close as possible. And you can do one side at a time, because each side is independent of the other. So now also, when this thing goes for an alignment, it will change, obviously, the marks in that. Plus, they have to do this adjustment with the wheels on the ground, so the bushing should be in the correct position. But you see, it's as close as I'm going to be able to get it. But it doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm just trying to get it as close as possible because it still has to go for an alignment. All right. Oops, I'm sorry. I just hit you, didn't I? No, maybe not. All right, so now same thing with this side. However, you may be too much in my way to do this. But we'll see. Like I said, you can adjust this side completely separate from the other side. And you saw how the wrench moved, but the rest of it did not. And on this side, it lines up a little bit better from inside and outside. And that's close enough. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just because I want to get it to an alignment shop. And I want to drive this truck for a day beforehand. So the alignment, if it's a little bit out, driving it for a day is not going to hurt nothing. You're not going to kill your tires. I mean, obviously, if I go down the road and I feel that this thing's pulling, or this thing's drifting, or I can hear the tire scrubbing, you know, anything like that, then I'm not going to drive it. I'm going to get the alignment done first. But I want to drive this thing a day tomorrow, since I did all this work to it before I give it back to my customer. Okay. So that's all good and tight. So now, what we have to do is, we have to get this nut off. Actually, I should have taken that protective booty off because that's going to be a pain in the neck now. And that's kind of my fault. Kind of my fault. It's definitely my fault because I'm the one who did it. All you're doing is fighting bushings when you do that. All right, so now it's getting close to being in place. Let me get a big pry bar in there. I'm going to back you up so you get a better view of this, of what I'm about to do. And let me get a bigger pry bar. Hang on. Now a big pry bar in there just to push it down. You got to see that? And now I can put my washer and castellated nut underneath here. All right. is as close to pretty much it as it's going to get. All right, let me reverse procedure to install. I got to tighten up the nut underneath. I got to put a cotter pin in it. They give you a cotter pin and the grease fitting in the kit. So put the grease fitting in. Usually it's an 8mm. So I gotta go get myself an 8mm, snug that down. You don't have to bare butt tight these things. You know, you don't have to go bananas. Bring them down, make sure they're good and snug. You could probably go more, but just stop, because I see that too, where people go and they tighten these things out down until they bottom out and then they snap them off. Can't tell you how often I've seen that. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we already blew that out before, so we're going to get this thing to sit down in place here. We're going to spray a little juice, wherever I put it. I had it. I'm very good for the, you know, I just had that bolt in my hand 2 minutes ago. What did I do with it? Or that tool in my hand 2 seconds ago. What did I do with it? That's me to a T. I do that all the time. The funny thing is, the older I get, the worse it gets. Now, if for some reason, like let's say the clip for this ABS sensor, let's say that broke off in the other one, you can zip tie it. It's not going to hurt nothing. Exercise restraint when you're tightening those up. They are only a 6mm bolt with a 10mm head. So there again, you don't have to go bananas. Let's see, let's tighten up that nut, which I think still feels like an 18 maybe. Ah, it's a 19 I think. Yep, that's a 19. Now, on one of these bolts, or nuts rather, I always call them bolts, I don't know why. I know the difference. It's like, I could feel, like right there, it started getting tight. So, situation where you can't get a torque wrench in there to actually get them to spec, just make sure they're nice and tight. But there again, don't go bananas. Because you go too nutty, and you really wedge, because it's a tapered fit. The ball joint's tapered into the knuckle. So the tapered fit can actually lock each other together and then really make it a pain in the neck to get apart. So now I'm just trying to see. Now you're seeing the back of my head here. So it's got to go a little bit more, which is fine. cotter pin in place. And there we're good. So, all right, let me wrap this up and just show you that. There's the cotter pin in place. I know some people are going to say, oh, you put it in wrong. Whatever. It's fine. It's not going to go nowhere. It's a redundant piece. And we get an 8mm tight neck grease fitting. And then this side is done. And I can put the wheel well in and stuff like that. I'm not going to show you doing the other side. To me, it's kind of pointless. I don't like wasting your time. Plus, it takes me a lot of time to make the video, so you know, I could be getting just into doing the job and getting it done. But yeah, let me tighten it up. We get the other side done. I'm going to grease them up, put the wheel wells in, and then we're just going to move forward to doing the brake booster. So that's, like I said, separate video. All right. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.